There's a hidden mechanism in your mind, a physical law of the psyche that has been forgotten by modernity, but which the ancient alchemists knew as the key to life and death. Have you ever noticed that the exact moment you tell someone a great plan, the will to achieve it diminishes? That when you share deep pain prematurely, it doesn't heal, it just spreads and loses its meaning. This is no coincidence. Carl Jung called this the necessity of the hermetic vessel. The brutal truth is that psychological transformation requires pressure, and pressure requires a closed container. If you live with your mouth open to the world, your soul is leaking. You are not living, you are dissipating. Today, we are going to enter the Teminos, the sacred space where lead turns into gold, and discover why secrecy is the father of power. If you feel your vital energy slipping through your fingers, and your projects never reaching their full potential, this is the repair manual you have been looking for. But be warned, what we are about to discuss requires the courage to look inside. If you want to stop being a spectator of your own life and become the alchemist of your destiny, make a pact with me now. Subscribe to the channel, not to increase in number, but to ensure you don't miss the next keys to this journey. Like this video to seal the contract and comment below with the word silence, so I will know who the few are that are ready to enter the sanctuary. Let's descend into the depths. To understand transformation, we must first understand the physics of the soul. In medieval alchemy, nothing, absolutely nothing, could be transmuted in an open container. The vas hermeticum needed to be sealed, not just covered, but fused shut. Why? Because the psyche, like water, takes the shape of the container that holds it. If there is no container, there is no form, just a shapeless puddle on the floor. Most people today live without this vessel. Their emotions, thoughts, and intuitions are immediately vomited onto social media or into trivial conversations. This prevents the heating process. For change to occur, the internal temperature needs to rise, and it only rises if the heat has nowhere to escape. The first step of your cure is to build the walls. Let's analyze this leakage through the lens of psychic energy, or Jungian libido. Imagine you have a quantum of energy destined to create a new career or overcome a trauma. This energy generates tension. Tension is uncomfortable. The ego's immediate instinct is to relieve this tension by speaking. By speaking, you discharge the battery. The relief is immediate, but the cost is fatal. You have thrown away the fuel you would use to act. The secret, therefore, is not moralism, it is energy economics. Keeping a secret creates an internal dam. The water rises, the pressure increases, and it is this accumulated hydraulic force that eventually breaks the barrier of inertia and generates real action. Those who speak much do little, not out of laziness, but out of physics. The energy has already been spent in speech. Jung rescued the Greek term Teminos, which meant a piece of sacred land, cut off from common use and dedicated to a god. Psychologically, the Teminos is the capacity to create a zone of mental isolation. In therapy, the office is this physical space. What is said there dies there. This creates absolute trust that allows the shadow to manifest. But you need an internal Teminos. You need a place in your mind where no one enters, not your spouse, not your parents, not your friends. It is the sanctuary of your individuality. Without this private space, you are just a reflection of others' expectations, a house without doors where anyone enters and rearranges the furniture. Our most terrifying and powerful aspects live in the shadow. The shadow is shy. It does not reveal itself under the harsh light of social judgment. If you expose your demons or your rawest desires in an uncontained environment, they retreat or attack. The safe and contained space acts as a darkroom for photographic revelation. It is only in the safety of non-leakage that shame loses its toxic power and transforms into usable material. Accepting that there are parts of you that should never be posted or told is the beginning of maturity. The shadow needs a silent invitation to rise to the surface and be integrated, and it only accepts this invitation if it knows it will not be exposed to public ridicule. Look at nature. The seed germinates in the total darkness of the earth. The fetus forms in the total darkness of the womb. Psychological transformation is a birth, and every birth demands a period of invisible incubation. We live in the era of radical transparency, which is unnatural for the soul. Trying to show your healing process while it is still happening is like ripping the seed out of the ground to see if it has taken root. You kill the process. Gestational silence is the discipline of enduring the not knowing and the not showing. It is enduring being seen as inactive or confused by the outside world, while inside, in the dark of the vessel, entire universes are being woven. Within the contained space, the most liberating phenomenon occurs, the death of the persona. The persona is the mask we wear for the world. It is necessary, but exhausting. In the Temenos, you have permission to be incoherent, weak, malicious, sacred, and profane, all at the same time. When the vessel is safe, the mask falls. And when the mask falls, the energy you spent holding it up is released for healing. People who do not have this safe space spend 24 hours a day acting, sustaining a character, which leads to chronic exhaustion and depression. The contained space is the only place where you can rest from being yourself. There's an ancient text that warns about not casting pearls before swine. Psychologically, this means not handing your deepest insights to people who do not have the level of consciousness to receive them. When you share a sacred truth of yours with someone who treats it with disdain or indifference, you profane your own process. The vessel breaks. You feel foolish, diminished. Protecting your internal discoveries from cynical eyes is not arrogance. It is the preservation of integrity. The guardian of the threshold must be you. Learn to distinguish what is public from what is sacred. The sacred, if exposed to the profane, loses its numinosity, its spiritual power. In therapy, containment is guaranteed by the figure of the analyst. This is where transference occurs. The patient projects figures of authority, love, and hate onto the analyst. The analyst, like a good alchemical vessel, receives all of this without breaking, without judging, and without leaking. He holds the tension that the patient cannot yet hold alone. But in self-transformation, you must learn to be your own analyst at certain moments. You must learn to look at your turbulent emotions and say, I can contain this. I do not need to act on this now. I can feel hate without hitting. I can feel desire without destroying. This ability to contain internal transference is the muscle of psychological adulthood. The closed vessel heats up. Jung said that neurosis is often a substitute for legitimate suffering. We try to avoid pain by distracting ourselves, by leaking the energy. But when we close the vessel, we are forced to cook in our own pain. This sounds terrible, but it is the only way to heal. The fire of suffering, when contained and observed, not avoided, transmutes matter. Anxiety turns into creativity. Depression turns into depth. Anger turns into assertiveness. But this only happens if you stay in the fire, if you do not flee the vessel. It is the concept of conscious suffering, the pain that is not useless, but is the heat necessary for the chemical reaction of change. Finally, if the vessel is kept hermetic, if the heat is endured and the incubation time respected, the conjunctio occurs, the union of opposites. What was once conflict becomes accepted paradox. Gold. You emerge from the process not fixed in the mechanical sense, but transformed. You now carry the Temenos inside you. You become a person who possesses an unshakable center of gravity. The silence you practiced becomes an aura of authority. Your projects come to fruition because the energy no longer leaks. You become the vessel. And, ironically, now that you no longer need to tell anyone anything, your presence speaks louder than any word.